Please take your seats. I'm just going to get Catherine just to join me for a moment. Come and join me. I just want to pray for Catherine. Give him that one. I want to be praying for Catherine. If you can just share with us for a couple of minutes what's going on in Wow. Wow, we could have got you up. Now, the Rubik's Cube, we got this yesterday. I'm going to give this as a little challenge. It's well mixed. I'm going to give it to Libby. As I just talk for 10 minutes, Libby going to see how much she can make of the Rubik's Cube. Is that all right, Libs? See how much colours you can get. The idea is, who doesn't know what the Rubik's Cube is? We all know what a Rubik's Cube is. We have to make the same colours. Now, how fast, this is incredible. How fast do you think that this young man did this Rubik's Cube? It's taken us years, hasn't it, to do it, and we still haven't done it. How long do you think that, I haven't got the video, you'll have to check it out for yourself. 30 seconds. Any advance on 30 seconds? 25 seconds. What do we reckon over here? 40 seconds. 40 seconds. The record a few years ago was about 5 seconds. I am not joking, you can watch it on YouTube. This guy can do it in 3.47 seconds. It took me longer than that to get it out the bag. 3.47 seconds from mixed up. What they do is they put it on the table. He's allowed to have a quick look like this. Puts it back on the table, hits the button, does it, 3.47 seconds, done. That is incredible. For the rest of us, it just takes patience. I was trying to do it yesterday. I wanted to come in this morning and impress you. So I looked at YouTube, step 1, got that. Step 2, got that. I was okay by step 2. I don't know how many steps there were. I gave up. That shows my impatience. By step 2, by step 3, I was mind-boggled. I didn't know how he was getting this colour to here. I couldn't work it out. So, Libby, you see how much you can do for the next 10 minutes. And 3.47 seconds. And I think that is incredible. It's worth checking out. My message, just very quickly, is love, patience, and sacrifice. And that's the Father heart of God. It's the heart of a father, it's the heart of a mother, it's the heart of us. We try our best to be loving, we try our best to be patient, and we try our best to be sacrificial. And we may be different at different scales of that as we go, as we look at what level of patience am I. Yesterday I pulled into a car park, and the car park was quite clearly 2 lanes in the car park. And this car in front of me saw their friend, who then parked in the middle of the lane of the car park and just had a natter to their friend. And as I was the next car, but then cars were building up behind me. And you just think, what on earth are you doing? If you want to chat, just pull over. Just pull over. And so we all get into situations where we can be patient or impatient. The test of if we're not very impatient, often God brings that into our life. Brings situations that will require patience. You pray, don't we? We pray, God, give me more patience. And what we want God to do somehow is to zap us with the patience gun and just say, there you are, you've got more patience. But what will happen on the back of your prayer, God give me more patience, is that he will send somebody into your life that will annoy you or will test your patience, because it's God's way. It's God's way of answering your prayer. Now, I know that you're all perfect in this church and you're the most patient church, most patient, loving saints that have ever existed, just like me, I know. But there are times, just like in the car park yesterday, I do get annoyed because it's part of who we are. And I just wonder actually whether God is testing our patience, at the moment. But the first word very quickly is love. Where do you find, if you really know the answer, don't shout out straight away, but where is love mentioned for the first time in the Bible? Where is love mentioned for the first time in the Bible? Where do you think? Adam and Eve? Where is love mentioned for the first time? I want to show you where love is mentioned. Not quite that far. Let's go for it, Jack, please. Genesis 22. the story of Abraham. And it says this, I'll just read this through. Sometime later, God tested Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain, and I will show you. Early the next morning, Abraham got up, loaded his donkey. He took him with his 2 servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place that God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Can you imagine the fear? Or just that sense of, this is really not what I expected. He said to his servant, stay here with the donkey for a while, and I and the boy will go over there. We will worship together, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father, yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? That's tough, isn't it? That's tough. We don't always have the answers, do we, when we're waiting on God? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son, and the 2 of them went together. When they reached the place God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on the top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took his knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on your boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make you descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, as sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you obeyed me. Because you obeyed me. We know the reflection. We know the parallel. This is your son, your only son, in whom you love. As Jesus is baptized and he comes out of the water, this is my son in whom I love and I am well pleased. We know the links. But can you imagine this? That's Genesis 22. Genesis 15 says this. After the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision, he said, I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abraham said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abraham said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him, this man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. At the age of 75 years old, God gave that promise to Abraham. At the age of 75. At the age of 100, God delivers on the promise that he gave Abraham. That is 25 years. 25 years of waiting for the promise of God to come to pass. Abraham must have thought, where are you, God, in this? I want you to clock that, because we don't always get that. Sometimes we think God promises and it comes the next day or the next year. 25 years later. In that time, Abraham's wife has an idea. God isn't going to show up in the way that he's promised. Let's work it out on our own. So Abraham sleeps with his servant. They have a son called Ishmael. We know the story. It gets messy. It gets messy because they intervened and tried to do for God what they didn't think God could do for them. And the question that I believe that God is wanting to ask us this morning is, do you want an Isaac or do you want an Ishmael? Do you want an Isaac or do you want an Ishmael? Because it's easy to manipulate and create Ishmael. We can do things in our own strength, but the problem is sometimes then it tangles with the promise of God. And I want to share this, and I want to share this because on the back of what Dave's been preaching and Steve's been preaching and others been preaching, and I haven't been here for a few weeks, and I was away for a couple of weeks, and we've done the locations thing, and I just want to share just for 2 minutes. Veronica could share for 2 minutes. If I hand you the mic, come forward for a minute. Do you want to just share of last week in two minutes, because we don't all get to see what's going on in the different locations.
About
the barbecue, yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, we decided that it was going to be a sunny day, so we had a barbecue. How many people were there? About 40. 40 people came to the barbecue. The majority of them were not Christians, which was wonderful. And to see the people just gathering together, spending time together. I've gone around talking to a lot of people, families that I've known through my job, and they've said, what's it all about? And I've been very open that it's a Christian thing, that it's our church that's doing it, and we want to do something in the community, and it's not put anybody off. They all want to come, so that's great. And they're actually starting to ask questions now, aren't they? Which is wonderful. And they're becoming much more, it's becoming their group, it's their thing, rather than the church is putting it on for them. And quite a few want to contribute now, which is just brilliant. We're looking to God to see what the next steps are, because it's all well and good, having a barbecue and playing games and everything. I got very wet on Sunday because we had lots of water and everything, and then somebody else got very wet, didn't they, Jack? But it was a lot of fun. But there's questions being asked now, and we just need to pray for all these people. When we're not doing these events as such, we need to be on our knees praying and praying and praying some more for these people, that God will just touch their hearts and open their eyes to see his love and his Father heart for them. Yeah.
That's what you've been praying for. That's what we're praying for. So when it says we're not here, we know that you're busy doing your thing here and we're busy doing our thing there. And last week it was an opportunity for the two groups to come together, the locations. John came, didn't they? Yeah, John came along. Tim and Heidi from Barbara came, and different ones came, and we have 15 guests that came from Veronica's friends, or those children that she's been working hard with for years and years. Never thought that we'd have them in our garden, would we? No. Reaching out to them. And so sometimes it can look like it's not happening. For Abraham, it looked like it was never going to happen. 25 years. 25 years. And he manipulated it. And it caused tension. There was tension. When he talks about take your son, your only son, it wasn't his only son, was it? Because he had Ishmael and Isaac. But it was the only son of the promise. It was the only son of the promise. And I want to just say this morning that there are promises that God's given this church, there are promises that God's given you that you have not yet seen, some of you. And you've been waiting for years and years. But I want to remind you that God hasn't forgotten. God is still on the case. The problem is we're a little bit like this. If we could have the next couple of slides, Jack. Next one. Look at that for a traffic jam. You think you've been in a traffic jam. Look at that for a traffic jam. I've never been in a traffic jam like that. I think they're brave on the bikes, aren't they? Look at that for... And we can feel like that sometimes. We can feel that we're so congested, so waiting. Maybe the next picture in a queue. Is this more like us sometimes? Or this guy more like us when we're waiting in the queue? You know. And the problem is this, and I'm going to end on this. I've been this person. I am this person sometimes. We all are that. Who's been this person sometimes? All of us. Yes, all of us. And we can get irate and angry and frustrated, but it doesn't change anything, does it? It doesn't change anything. It doesn't make the queue go any quicker. It doesn't make the cashier speed up. It doesn't change anything. The only hope is that they might open a till a bit further up. That's what you're praying for when you're in that situation. Hurry up, let's open up another till. But it doesn't change anything. And God has been so patient with us. God is so patient with us. And he was willing to go to the cross to sacrifice his only son. And we've just got to be a little bit more patient with God. It's not easy. I don't find it easy. But let's just close our eyes for a minute. For some of you, there are promises that some of you have had that you have not yet seen. And because we haven't seen it, we've pushed it down. We've tried to forget it. We may have forgotten it because of the promises. It's just taken so long. "25 years Abraham waited. And then the most special thing in his life, God says, then go and sacrifice it. And because he was willing to sacrifice it, God said, now the promise that I've given you, the second promise that you'll become more numerous than the sand and the stars, that will come true. Why? Because you have obeyed me. I pray for those that God is testing your patience. I pray that we would pass that test. I pray for those areas where God has promised something and we're still holding on. Just keep waiting on God. If it's a promise from God, he will come through for you. Maybe not in the time you wanted, but he will come through for you. And what do? We just keep obeying him. Just keep doing what God's calling us to do. Some of you are so frustrated. I think there's someone here that is so frustrated that things aren't happening the way that you want them to happen. Even this morning, frustrated. But God said it's not about you. It's about my timing. You just keep being obedient. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Let's sing our last song. And then we're going to see how far Libby got with the Rubik's Cube.